I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, backed by Beijing. Lawmakers in Hong Kong passed a new national security law, how it may target the faithful. Pro-abortion push. Reaction after a state senator in Arizona publicly announces her plans to have an abortion. Hope for Haiti. Author Mitch Albom tells us about his work in the country and his recent escape from the violence that's gripped the Caribbean nation. Plus, father figure, how the church is celebrating the feast of St. Joseph. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Joseph. Our top story tonight, President Joe Biden, Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State are traveling the globe dealing with ongoing wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. At the same time, they are promising to defend another country if it ever goes to war. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, in Manila, Secretary of State Antony Blinkin underscored Washington's ironclad commitment to help defend the Philippines. He also discussed the war in the Mideast. And U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says the United States will not let Ukraine fail.
And our allies and partners continue to step up. And the United States must also.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says Ukraine's survival is in danger and America's security is at risk. He met with allies in Germany to discuss more aid for Ukraine.
So I leave here today fully determined to keep U.S. security assistance and ammunition flowing. And that's a matter of survival and sovereignty for Ukraine, and it's a matter of honor and security for America.
Also overseas, Secretary of State Antony Blinkin, who is urging more aid for Gaza, describing today, in his words, a horrific humanitarian situation for children, for women, and for men in Gaza, adding that humanitarian assistance must be a priority and it must be sustained.
100% of the population in Gaza is at severe levels of acute food insecurity. That's the first time an entire population has been so classified.
His comments come as a United Nations Food Agency warned that famine is imminent in northern Gaza, where just today a new shipment of food arrived. And as talks for a ceasefire in the Mideast continue, the Israeli military, hunting down Hamas, says it has killed more than 50 militants in its ongoing raid at the biggest hospital in the Gaza Strip.
Welcome, Mr. Secretary.
And while in the Philippines, Blinkin also meeting with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Blinkin renewed a warning that the U.S. is obligated to defend the Philippines if it comes under attack in the South China Sea. Earlier this month, the Chinese Coast Guard tried to damage a Filipino boat on a routine supply mission. And another Philippine ship was harassed by Chinese Coast Guard water cannons on the same day.
And separately tonight, President Joe Biden flew off to the western United States earlier today for a three-day campaign swinging Nevada, Arizona, and Texas. The trip is geared largely towards courting Latino voters who helped him win back in 2020. The trip is also emphasizing his pro-union and pro-abortion messages. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, retired General Mark Milley, testified before the House Foreign Affairs Committee, along with retired general who headed U.S. Central Command. It allowed for further insights into the botched withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And I consistently supported a negotiated end to the war, but only if there was a reduction in violence leading to a permanent ceasefire, and there were Afghan-to-Afghan negotiations leading to a power-sharing agreement between the Afghan government and the Taliban. And it was my view that absent those conditions, I was not in favor of a unilateral withdrawal.
Having a plan is one thing, preparing the plan, vetting the plan, coordinating the plan with the people that are going to actually carry you out, the Department of Defense, that's another set of tasks completely.
And that was too little, too late.
It is my judgment that it was far too little, far too late.
Both Milley and McKenzie testified in 2021. They advised President Biden to maintain a small U.S. force in Afghanistan, that is, despite the deaths of 13 U.S. service members and the abandoning of tens of thousands of Afghan allies to Taliban rule. President Biden continues to say that he made the right decisions. Well, the Supreme Court has lifted the block on a Texas law that gives police broad powers to arrest migrants suspected of entering the country illegally. The Biden administration is is suing to strike down the measure. Texas says that it has the right to prevent what it says is an invasion of migrants. Well, it is shutdown week in Congress again as lawmakers are scrambling to keep most of the government open past Friday at midnight. They finally agreed on funding levels, but the question remains, is there enough time for the House and Senate to pass it and get it to the president's desk for a signature? Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with the latest. Eric.
Good evening, Tracy. Yes, the clock is ticking. The 6 funding bills, which cover more than 70% of the government, has a total cost of nearly $1 trillion. Now, it comes as it all comes together after Congress and the White House agreed on final numbers for the Department of Homeland Security. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is optimistic that Congress can get it done.
We don't want to shut down the government. It's going to cause huge problems for everybody, including our military, including our veterans, including so many other people. So it's difficult. It's a difficult bill, probably the most difficult of them all.
The budget deal follows a similar agreement reached last summer between then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden.
We have a
Current House Speaker Mike Johnson says this budget is the first step to reining in government spending.
This isn't a time of divided government and a time of this literally the slimmest margin in U.S. history. It's not the time for long Hail Mary passes on every play, but it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This is an incremental thing that we have to do to change Washington and how it works.
But some Republicans say it's just more of the same and doesn't include provisions to secure the borders. Members of the Freedom Caucus wrote to Speaker Johnson, quote, "The House must put forth an appropriations measure that forces the inclusion of the core elements of H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, ends funding for trafficking, and prohibits non-citizens from voting in federal elections. Otherwise, Republicans will be funding Biden's open borders policies." Democrats say H.R. 2 is a non-starter, but remain hopeful.
Speaker Johnson has been willing to sit down with President Biden and Leader Jeffries and fund the government. As you know, we've funded part of the government, and I'm hopeful we will be able to get a deal so we avert a shutdown.
Now, the timing here is very tricky. The language of the bill won't be out until Wednesday, and a House Republican rule gives members 72 hours to review it. That means that a final vote in the House won't come till at least Saturday. And then the Senate has to take it up, and even more possible delays could take place there. Bottom line, we could be headed for another continuing resolution for at least several days to keep the government open. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
5 states are holding presidential primaries today. Voters headed to the polls in Arizona, Florida, Illinois, Kansas, and Ohio. And while we know that both President Biden and former President Trump will be going head-to-head in November, today's focus is on a few down-ballot races in Illinois and Ohio. Well, startling scenes as an Arizona state senator announces that she's having an abortion.
And once again, I have scheduled an appointment to terminate my pregnancy.
Democrat State Senator Eva Birch made the announcement on the Senate floor, saying that she plans to have the abortion after finding out that her pregnancy is not viable. She claims the state presented her information about alternatives to abortion, which she called factually false. Arizona law currently bans abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Let's bring in Lori Z. Gray, a member of the Arizona Life Coalition. Lori, thank you so much for coming on today. What was your reaction when you heard about Senator Eva Birch announcing this on the Senate floor?
So, of course, our hearts go out to anyone who loses a child. Many women have felt that. It's unfortunate. I'm not a medical doctor, nor do I know the details of her situation, but there are definitely things in place for her to, options for her, considering what she's going through.
Yeah, and Lori, as we mentioned, Senator Birch said that she was giving factually false information about the alternatives that was required by law. What do you think she means by factually false information? And can you tell us more about the current law in Arizona?
I have no idea what information she was given. She did not state that information or exactly what she was told or who told it to her. So I can't answer that question, but I can tell you as of today, we have a 15-week ban in place in the state of Arizona. So legally, she could, or anyone could, have an abortion up to 15 weeks today if they wanted to.
Yeah, and I know this hits really close to home to you, as you yourself regretfully had 2 abortions. If you don't mind, Lori, could you share your story with us? And do you think if these laws were on the books right now, would things maybe be different for you?
Oh, absolutely. So at the age of 17, back in Detroit, Michigan, where I was born and raised, I was referred to an abortion clinic via Planned Parenthood. And it was a substandard clinic, of course, and I was 22 weeks pregnant. Unfortunately, I wasn't given any options or no counseling, no ultrasounds or anything like that. And that abortion actually left me unable to have children. He destroyed my cervix. So having more options, also my parents were not required in that clinic to be consulted with. Things may have turned out different for me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. I know it was hard. I also understand in Arizona, Democrats have proposed currently 2 abortion bills this year. What more do you know about that?
So the Arizona Abortion Access Act is a ballot initiative that the abortion lobby is trying to get enough signatures for. They need nearly 400,000 signatures for it to be on the ballot in November 2024. We at Arizona Right to Life are doing everything that we can to get the information to the voters that if they were to sign this petition and in turn vote for it to go into our Constitution, we would have abortion up to birth with no restrictions enshrined in our Constitution in Arizona.
Lori, do you think that this could actually become a reality? I mean, how much support does this have in the state of Arizona?
Well, it definitely could be a reality. We see what happened in Ohio, and we do know that a lot of people had bad information. They didn't understand what they were voting for. So what we're doing right now is trying to alert the voters of Arizona not to even sign the petition if they do not believe in abortion up to birth, because that is the crux of this amendment. And it would be very difficult for it to be removed from our Constitution because of the structure, the way our legislature is set up. So it's really important for everyone to know in the state of Arizona, if someone approaches you to sign a petition for the Arizona Abortion Access Act, don't sign it. 70% of Americans via a Gallup poll that came out recently are not for abortion up to birth and do think there should be some restrictions. This amendment will remove all restrictions, including parental consent and the requirement of a medical doctor or physician to perform abortion. And that could be a health issue for the women of Arizona.
Absolutely. Lori, thank you so much for coming on and for your insights. We appreciate it. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
All right, now to Wisconsin, where starting today, Medicaid participants have access to the first over-the-counter birth control pill. Democratic Governor Tony Evers said that this would allow recipients to receive contraception medication with no out-of-pocket costs or doctor's prescriptions. The Food and Drug Administration approved the sale of Opill back in July. It is available to women nationwide. We still have a lot more to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including security crackdown. Hong Kong passes a brand new national security law backed by China's communist government. How it could impact the Catholic Church. And this is not an adventure. Author and sports journalist Mitch Albom escaped from Haiti amid violence and bullets, but he wants to talk about the people left behind. Welcome back. Lawmakers in Hong Kong have unanimously approved a new national security law. One lawmaker says Hong Kong is simply following other nations with enacting more national security laws. The second bill is backed by China's communist government. It threatens life imprisonment for treason and insurrection. There are also concerns that Catholic priests could be coerced into revealing what they hear in confession. And for analysis, we turn now to Bill McGurn, Main Street columnist for the Wall Street Journal and godfather to Jimmy Lai, the founder of Apple Daily and a pro-democracy advocate. Bill, great to have you on again. Tell us more about this new national security law. How is this different from the measure that was signed in 2020?
Yeah, it's a long time coming. When Hong Kong was handed over to China, shortly after, they wrote this law called the Basic Law, which was the Constitution for Hong Kong. And in that law, there's a section called Article 23. And it's basically calls on the government to have a new set of security laws that reflect its new status under China, not under Britain. Well, every time they tried in 2003 to do that, and the public really rebelled. They tried to get in 2019 to get an extradition treaty. That means that Hong Kong people could be sent to China for trial, and there were huge public protests. So China then passed this national security law, which it imposed on Hong Kong. That's what you're talking about. It imposed this law, and the law is very vague. Basically, it means whatever China wants it to mean. Jimmy Lai is being prosecuted under it right now for having foreign contacts, foreign collusion. In addition to that, they still want this other legislation, which they just approved. They say it clears up things like treason and insurrection. Really what it does is give the government more tools to lock people up. The Hong Kong Democracy Council reports that they already have 1,829 political prisoners. And the law is also very vague. And I suspect it will also mean whatever the government says it means.
Yeah, and Bill, quickly, how could this impact the Catholic Church and other Christian communities? And do you think this is going to force priests to break the seal of confession?
The diocese with the new cardinal issued a statement saying it will not, but other people are not so sure. I am only sure of this. If China or Hong Kong determines that the seal of confessional needs to be broken for some trial they plan, it will be broken. If they want it to mean that, it'll mean that, whatever the promises are today.
Bill, little under a minute left, but curious, have you heard anything about Jimmy Lai, about his current condition at all, and how he's doing?
Well, right now he's on trial, and it's a very lengthy trial, probably has 2 or 3 months to go. So this is what he's been in jail waiting for, the big trial and foreign influence, and he drives him crazy because he won't admit his guilt. He pleads not guilty. That means he'll have a say. And I think in reality, though he's a man in the dock, really Hong Kong has put itself in trial. The US, the UK, the UN, they've all raised questions about this trial of Jimmy Lai. It's a clear case of politics, putting on trial an unfavored political figure because he opposed the government. And he's only the most famous face. There are a lot of people in jail that nobody knows. No one knows their names because they were pro-democracy when the government didn't want them to be.
Yeah, and we are praying for Jimmy, of course. Bill, thank you so much for coming on. It was great to see you. We appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
God bless.
Thank you.
All right, now to the violence in Haiti, where amid gang violence, the country is one step closer to naming an interim leader. All groups and political parties, except one, have submitted nominees for a transitional leader. Gangs have killed dozens of people, with 17,000 others left homeless. This comes as human rights advocates are urging the Dominican Republic to stop deporting people to Haiti. But the foreign minister says the moves are part of national security and will continue. Mitch Albom is best known for his blockbuster book, Tuesdays with Morrie, and decades as a sports journalist. But what people may not know is that he has deep connections to the country of Haiti and runs a school and orphanage there. Earlier this month, Albom survived a harrowing helicopter escape during the political upheaval. Here to discuss the current situation in Haiti and his continued commitment to its children is Mitch Albom. Mitch, great to have you with us today. We appreciate it. So much to discuss, but I want to start with that incident that happened a couple of weeks back. Tell us more about that and walk us through that situation.
Well, I go to Haiti every month, have for the last 14 years with my wife to operate our orphanage there. And periodically we take people with us, guests, teachers, psychologists, things like that. And on this trip we had 8 people with us. And right after we got there, The violence from the gangs, which is omnipresent, really surged to a new level. They broke into prisons, they freed prisoners, they took over the airport, they took over the ports, and very rapidly there was no way to get out. And as the days passed, it became apparent that we weren't going to be able to get out through the U.S. Embassy, and if we were going to be able to get out, it was going to have to be on our own. And that took some time, a couple of failed attempts. Finally, a congressman named Corey Mills, who also seems to double as a secret agent, was able to organize a helicopter sort of evacuation along with Lisa McClain, another congressperson, a private effort, even though they're congresspeople. And one night, in the very dark of night, they were able to come into a secure location, pick us up, in about a minute. Everybody piled into the helicopter and flew out. And it was very harrowing, as you can imagine, very movie-like. But it was not an adventure story. To me, it was a tragedy. We've become pretty practiced at trying to keep normalcy for our children, having them go to school, pray, eat, do their activities, play. Unfortunately, on this particular trip, when we did our nightly devotions, which is a regular part of our routine at about 6:37 at night, they did them to the backfire of gunfire, which you could hear. I mean, it wasn't a stray gunshot. It was rapid fire, assault rifle types of things that went on for hours. So you can only keep the outside away for so long. Our children have not been able to go out of the orphanage in 3 years. They have literally not stepped outside the gates because it's too dangerous on the streets.
Yeah, and it's so important to talk about that and get that word out and let people know what's happening over there. Hard for us to imagine here in the United States what life is like. Mitch, before I let you go, I know that you have a new book out. Tell us about that. It's called The Little Liar, and how you think it resonates and what we're experiencing in the world right now.
Well, ironically, you know, I started it a couple of years ago, and it's set during the Holocaust, and it revolves around a little boy who's never told a lie in his life. And when the Nazis invade his village in Greece, they find out about his honesty and decide to use him as a weapon and trick him into lying on the railroad tracks to the Jewish people who are getting on these trains and telling them they're going to new jobs and new homes. And he thinks he's telling them the truth, and only when the last train is loaded with his own family does he find out that these trains are actually going to the concentration camps, and he's not allowed to get on the train. And it follows what happens as a result of that lie to him as he seeks forgiveness, to his family as they seek to find him again, and over the next 40 years. And the hopelessness of that period of time, when we had that feeling for 8 or 9 days of not being able to escape, not being able to go anywhere, not being able to get away from the horror. If it helps raise awareness about, you know, people's cruelty to one another and the long-term effects of it, then I'm glad it's having that effect.
And Mitch, quickly, if people would like more information about Have Faith Haiti, where can they find that?
Our website, havefaithhaiti.org, very simple, and you can find out everything that we do. They can see the videos. 100% of the money that we raise goes right to the cause. There are no administrative costs. I handle all of that myself. So if someone gives us $1, they know $1 is going to food or to fuel, or in this case to more security right now and water and things like that. So it's havefaithhaiti.org. And thank you for asking me that.
Absolutely. Mitch, thank you for coming on today and all that you do. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, patron saint of fathers, an inside look at the feast day of St. Joseph, including relics that offer a glimpse into the life of the Holy Family. Catholics around the world celebrate the solemnity of St. Joseph, protector of the family and patron of the universal church and of workers. In Italy, St. Joseph's Day is also known as Father's Day. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser has more.
Joseph prayed, worked, and loved. Because of this, he always received what he needed to face life's trials.
The Feast of St. Joseph celebrates the patron saint of fathers. In Italy and around the world, it's a day to honor the men who embody the spirit of giving for their families. In the heart of Rome, among ancient splendors and relics, lies a treasure seldom seen by the public eye. The Basilica of St. Anastasia is the garden of a relic of St. Joseph. For 16 centuries, this basilica has housed a holy garment believed to have been brought to Rome by St. Jerome in the 4th century, along with a colorful veil of the Virgin Mary. The two relics offer a glimpse into the Holy Family's life, where St. Joseph silently cared for Mary and Jesus. Pope Francis, speaking about fatherhood during one of his general audiences, emphasized that fathers are not born, but made. It's about accepting the responsibility for another's life, a commitment that transforms a man into a father.
A man does not become a father simply by bringing a child into the world, but by taking up the responsibility to care for that child.
This responsibility St. Joseph carried out through his life and left an example for today's fathers.
In your family is to live heroically.
Bishop Robert Barron, reflecting in an interview with EWTN in Rome, points out that St. Joseph is a man of action.
I love how Joseph never speaks in the Gospels. We never hear one word from him. He's a man of obedience to the Lord. He takes in the divine word and then he does it. He acts. Not a lot of blah blah and talking and explaining and excusing himself. He listens and he acts. And he acts by providing and protecting. Or look to Joseph, listen, take in the divine word, and then get going, do it.
In his apostolic letter, Patris Corde, Pope Francis presents St. Joseph as a figure of compassionate love and as a father who accepts, teaches, and is present through the ordinary yet significant actions of daily life. In the Basilica of St. Anastasia in Rome, St. Joseph's cloak symbolizes a story of love and sacrifice. Legend has it that upon Mary's suggestion, Joseph traded the cloak she had given him on their wedding day for wood to continue his carpentry, symbolizing the selflessness and care at the heart of his legacy. In Rome, Andreas Tonhauser and Matteo Cioffi, EWTN News Nightly.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.